Hello everyone, this is Kathleen and I'm happy to be here with a kind of a different video today. Recently I posted that poll in my community tab and thank you so much. In the comments I had one of my viewers, Joyce, asked a question and needed some explanations about how do you use a junk journal anyway? And apart from making them and making them pretty, how do you use them? And she specifically had 3 questions that were quite confusing to her, such as, what about all those little things like tickets and labels and, how do you use those? What are they for? What is hidden journaling? And when do you use that? And what about all those old tucked in papers? Why do you put those in there? How to use them, when to use them, why they're there? Yeah, so those are some of the questions that I'm going to try to answer today. So what I did was I dug out all of my used journals and I'm just going to maybe show them to you and try to answer some of her questions. So I have a handful of journals. This one is the current one that I'm using, not very often because I don't actually journal very often, but do it. I just don't take the time to do it. What about all these little things? So I got some little things that I might put into a journal pocket. If you were to have a journal from me, you might get something like this little label, for instance, and it's pretty tiny. You could, Joyce, just write a word to remind you about something, a word that's meaningful to you, and tuck it in or pin it on. You could use a label like this as a label on a journal page and write a title, something like that, and glue it into the journal. You might find a little piece of ephemera like this in a journal that I would make. And I would include something like this as just something interesting, in the journal. It's just something decorative for sure, but just interesting. As I'm reading in my journals, sometimes I like to just think about something interesting or hold something old. It's appealing to me, and so we sometimes just put something like that in a journal just as decoration. Tickets are the same thing. Some people write very small, but you could just write a meaningful word on that and then stick it in. This is something maybe a little bigger that you could actually journal on. You could write a thought or a quote, a favorite scripture, something like that. The same with this would be a little tag, and even though it's written on the back, you could paste something on there. You could alter it in some other way with a picture or a pretty sticker, or you could use it, as something to journal on. Same with this. There are little bits of spaces. Now, as far as hidden journaling, why do we do that? Well, you might be lucky enough to get like an altered envelope in your journal, or to put an altered envelope in your journal. And that is just a place where you can put things, you can write. I have a lot of hidden journaling in my journals, and that's because sometimes I don't want people to read my thoughts. And so if I put it into a place that is not, it's one more step. It's not like, as I open this up, it's not like you can just see right away what I'm writing. So that's the purpose of hidden journaling. And people get really creative with hidden journaling, and I think it's really cool, but I generally just use an envelope. So now she has a question about all the old papers and why we put those in journals, and when do you use them and how do you use them. Well, I put vintage ephemera in my journals because I love old things, and I love just holding them and reading them, like an old letter from someone or an old note. So sometimes they're there just kind of, again, like something like this. It might just be decorative, but you can enjoy it as a piece of vintage ephemera. And then I try to choose ephemera that has blanks on the back, and so then you can journal on top of those. You can always just write over the top of the print. Often we include like vintage ledgers, and it's just kind of interesting to look at, but you can also just write right on top of that, and that can also be a form of hidden journaling. To make it harder to read is sometimes a useful thing for a diarist. And then again, this has lots of space on the back for extra journaling. So putting other papers in a journal is a useful way to add space for extra journaling. Okay, so that hopefully answers the specific questions. But now let me just show you examples of what my journals have looked like. So this was a journal that I kept when I was on a diet, and it's things that I learned from doing things. This is choose one thing every day to focus on. And this is just to help kind of distract from what you're needing to do. This is just simply a place, a tag for me to make an affirmation. I am faithful to my joy, energy, and purpose. So when I would walk, I would read that to myself and send myself good messages. Okay, so behind here, there's a pocket here, and I just, can write my thoughts on different papers. I love to write on paper that's been smushed. It just, when paper is wet and then dried, it has a particular quality of bumpiness or texture that I really like to write on. These are just mindfulness questions. What is my hunger like right now? Notice the act of chewing and swallowing and tasting. Check in with my hunger. Yeah, so these are just different thoughts that, I wanted to save, and so I just put that there, and then there's those things there. Anyway, so that's, and this journal is very plain for the most part. Honestly, I have some places, these are more affirmations. I would choose one when I would walk. Here's just the rewards, some ideas for rewards that don't have anything to do with food. But this is kind of a plain book, but it's just all my notes about dieting and how I can do that. This is a book. I have a couple of videos about working in here. This is a book that is Christmas memories. So you can just see this is how I've written this. This is an example of writing on top of printed pages that were underneath. Here's just some little tags. My dad loved the story of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. He could quote the whole thing. And here's just some others. So this book is not done, but this is a place that I can record memories of Christmases. And so this is just a little tag, Joyce. It doesn't have a purpose other than just to be kind of decorative and cute. Yeah. This is a school on this flashcard. This is memories about school. So this is just a kind of a quick flip through. I have some journaling cards. This one's been written on. It's just one memory. And so that's one of the things I do for myself when I journal. I make spaces, smaller places, that I can just list one memory so that I don't have to feel like I'm writing a book. You know, I can just come along. So here's an example of ledger paper. I can just write over the top of that, and it just is interesting. Or I can take an eraser and erase some of it if I want. Here is an example of hidden journaling. So this is just my thoughts about our Christmas stockings. That's what this is. This doesn't necessarily have to be hidden. It's not that I'm ashamed of the memory or need to hide it from eyes or anything. It's just, whoops, it goes this way. But if I were grieving the loss of someone, or then I might want to have lots of hidden journaling, you know, where I could just express myself without fear that someone was going to see it. Here's another note. It's just one memory of where we used to buy Christmas gifts when I was young. This card is not used yet. Just another place for me to write something. Now this is real hidden journaling in here. This is an envelope, and it has a tag which hides the flap, and then there's spaces in here. Okay, so I haven't used those yet, but that's an example of a hidden journaling space. Here's another printed page. You could just write on it. And if you write big with a contrasting marker, then you can see your writing rather than the printing. Yeah, so there's an example of this journal. Yeah, okay. So let me go on to this. This is a gratitude journal. And I started it a long time ago. I got this in a swap. And yeah, I like it. I like the way it molds. And so I got the journal in the swap, and I have decorated it myself. But here's an example of kind of a useless piece of ephemera. It does have some room here on the back that I can paste a picture there or do some writing, but it's just interesting. That's all it is. It's interesting and kind of fun to read about it or wonder about it. One of the greatest blessings in my life that has been this past year is, yeah, just thoughts. So I sometimes paste pictures of things. I find poems that I like and then respond to that. Things I like to do outside. So my journaling is not always long and complicated. A lot of times I really like just these little tags and small pieces of paper that I can just write one thing. I don't have to feel like I have to write, you know, a whole bunch of stuff. There's just a tag. tucks in there. Here's a flip. Here's a label. So if I got loose labels in a junk journal, then I could just use those labels to label different things. It's my daughter setting the table for Thanksgiving. This is a picture of my husband. He's pretty handsome. He hasn't changed much since that picture. Yeah, so I still have all this room here going forward that I can continue to keep a gratitude journal. Okay, so these are my COVID journals. I kept journals during COVID, and this was the first one. You can see I thought this was going to be big enough, and I knew this was just going to be for me and just kind of a record my thoughts kind of a thing, and so keep track of things. So I just made it. I didn't do a whole lot of decorating, really. I just would keep track of, you know, the deaths that were reported every day and some of my thoughts. Whoops. This is another example, Joyce, of hidden journaling. So you can do something and then you hide it in the back, and that's for thoughts or something that you might not want everybody in the world to see. My daughter Abigail, who graduated with her associates in May, couldn't attend the graduation. She didn't really have a graduation. It was just kind of an online thing. These are just some things that came off the internet that, you know, I just collected some different thoughts, and sometimes I typed it, sometimes I wrote it. On May 4th, the United States had 1 million cases reported. Anyway, I just wanted to keep a journal that would document what happened, how I felt, what was going on. I thought this would be plenty of room. So this one filled up, and I had to make a new one. So I made this one. And this one took me all the way to November. So, you know, I kept a lot of things, kept track of a lot of things. So, yeah, I would just make things that made me feel better. Courage. Here's just a picture that I got off the internet. Just some thoughts. Promising news yesterday, July 22nd. I did often just write on regular notebook paper, and then I would add it in here. There's another little space, you know, for, this is another space for hidden journaling, you know, or just, doesn't have to be hidden, but it can just be room to tuck journaling into. Nope, that one's blank. I guess I didn't get around to that. This is another hidden journaling spot, and I can just write. This happens to be a quote from someone. Anyway, so here's this. This is a whole page, yeah, on doom scrolling. Doom scrolling. That was kind of a new term during the pandemic. or doom surfing are new terms referring to the tendency to continue to surf or scroll through bad news, even though that news is saddening, disheartening, or depressing. During times of crisis and uncertainty, some of us pay more attention to the news, looking for answers. Many people are finding themselves reading continuously bad news about COVID-19 without the ability to stop or step back. And I could describe myself as that. And then I've just written some things about my mental health. I say the one thing I know about my mental health is that I have enjoyed making and writing in this journal. When I started it, I just thought it would be a primary historical record of my experience of the pandemic. I thought it would be more dispassionate. I thought it would be a more dispassionate record because I don't really like to keep a diary of thoughts, but I can see that my thoughts and opinions and biases and all have leaked into the record. I guess I'm not surprised that I could not keep them out, actually. I love making the actual book and creating the artistic touches. Art and creating art soothes me. I love pretty things. I love color. If I can't create something each day, I'm not as happy. So it is just a coincidence that the journal making could come in handy right now. If my recording book was very plain, I'm sure I wouldn't be writing as much. So sometimes I wonder if I scroll the news just so that I can find the facts to write about. So maybe I need to learn to write about other stuff as well and not feel limited to recording the news only. Maybe. History can be defined as a shared knowledge of the past. Our memories, certainly mine, are pretty unreliable when it comes to history. Thinking the past is different than remembering the past. So that's why written records are important. So I'm trying to create more of a written chronicle, a factual account. But yes, this account certainly has my own biases revealed. I'm not sure I can help it. So perhaps it isn't a chronicle, just a record of my personal experience. So that, I guess, should help my children or anybody, whoever. I hope nobody reads this, actually. It would be terrifying to them, really. And they would be surprised, I think. Because, yeah, talking about biases and thoughts. Okay, let me just show you this last one. This is the one that I am currently kind of keeping, and it just, again, I started this for Junk Journal July, Meg's Journals, a couple of years ago, and so in 2021, actually, I started this. So, yeah, this is just a book that I can keep happy things in. For instance, I put this little frog charm on there. This talks about, we had a frog rain on July 5th, the day before Tuesday. The tank on County 21 County Road is filled with water, and the little toads are taking advantage of their opportunity. A frog rain is a rain that's heavy enough that it makes puddles and fills the little low spaces, and all the spadefoot toads come out and try to breed while they have a chance. Yeah. So here again is an example of just printed pages in a journal, but when you write big enough and with a contrasting color, then you can see that rather than the print fades into the background. Yeah, so this is just a thought about a badger that's out there somewhere. Here's other places, other little places that I can, you know, just think. This is just, why do I care? You know, yeah. Here's just a little piece of paper with a quote on it. some other little things. Just a little, you know, some thoughts. Tuck in there. So again, this journal is not completely filled. It's just the way I journal. I sometimes do and I sometimes don't. And this just gives me an opportunity to come along at some point and write some thoughts. Here's a little spot, an envelope where I can, if I want to write something negative, and I can just write it in there and hide it away. Yeah. So this is another example of one of those little things, Joyce, that sometimes you find in journals. And I've just taken this and used it as a decoration. This little plain card there. So this is just a small piece. I always have these little shorts in my journals that I make. And it's just for something like this, to write a quote or some other little thought. This is just a receipt. I haven't written on it yet, but you can see now why I put these in my journals, because I just write little thoughts, and the color matches here, and it adds a little color and becomes a decorative thing as well. So here's the scripture. Here's some texture paste, a label. This is, I don't know if you can see that, it says joy. So the question is, what brings me joy? Yeah, and I've just thought about that. This is a prompt, layered on this day. Oh, I liked this. The tectonic layers of our lives rest so tightly on one on top of the other that we always come up against earlier events in later ones, not as a matter that has been finally formed and pushed aside, but absolutely present and alive. I understand this, nonetheless, sometimes find it hard to bear. So here's just this a little tiny piece that I made into a pocket. Here's, this is the end of the Santa Fe Trail, a vintage postcard. And I live near Santa Fe and I always enjoy, visiting Santa Fe, being a tourist, even though I live here. Yeah, and home again. It's just my thoughts about traveling. Here's a little hidden journaling spot. I have called you by your name, you are mine. That's in Isaiah. And I just like to sometimes ponder these things. So this pretty tag that I made, and there's still room there. This is a page about my worries, things that I worry about. Some more texture paste there. This is kind of fun. I just made this kind of top tuck and just have some old paper that I can write on. And then this is a page from my granddaughter, Ione, drew this picture for me. And I just went ahead and smushed it, kind of dressed it up a little bit, punched those out, and then I just got that tucked in there. But so you see, I wouldn't write on top of that probably, but I might write and journal on the back. That's how I would use that. Here's a little pocket and a journaling card. Yeah, so this is the way I do it. This is just a tonal page, moments, and then I've just used a bunch of cutouts of leaves and a little bit of trim, collage here. That's just one thought right there. There's a pocket. And I don't do things chronologically either. So here's just a little tiny piece of paper, but time runs fast for me now. I can see it slip away faster and faster. I hope I have lived well. It's just a thought that I had on that day. Always spend life happy. So this is still available for journaling. Yeah, little pocket there. This is just the program from a funeral of a sweet, sweet woman. Yeah. There's just some cards, random things. But, yeah. So that's what it looks like to journal in a junk journal. I hope that's been helpful, Joyce, and I hope that it's answered some of your questions. If you have other questions, if any of you have any questions about how to journal or anything that you've seen today, then go ahead and leave me a comment. And if you've enjoyed this, I hope you'll give it a like. It's kind of an unusual video and may not spread well. So thanks for your support, and I will be back with another project, and soon, hopefully, I will get my plans together and begin that series. So thanks for all of your votes on that community poll, and we'll see you again. Bye-bye.